Hey, gun people. A little follow up on this Noor. Does everybody remember this officer Noor? Did a couple videos on it. He was a Muslim officer who shot a white woman from Australia. She called the cops of somebody in an alley screaming. She went up to the car. He pulled his gun inside the car, has the passenger shot across the car in front of his partner, who was the driver of the police car, shot in front of him out the window and shot and killed this Australian unarmed woman in her pajamas. She was white. He was Muslims. Big issues. Why was he hired? He was the extreme, department's great person. He got along with the Muslim community. He was shaking hands with all the people wearing hijabs or whatever they call that thing on their head. So, and I'm always talking about quota hires. And everybody's like, Rick, you shouldn't say that because that's not true. And they don't hire people just because of religion or sex or color. Well, obviously they do, because now in a criminal case, they brought out this guy's psychiatric records and said he should have never been hired. He should have never finished FTO. He didn't like people. He didn't like being around people. And they hired him anyway. Why? Because of quota hire. When you have quota hires, there's no standards. And I'm always getting people coming here going, Rick, how do you know they're a quota hire? If you're in the quota system to where you're hired, you're a quota hire. Can there be good people who are actually quota hired? Sure. I'm not saying they can't be good because they were quota hired. I'm saying quota hires tend to be hired for other reasons than their qualifications. And if by chance, if by luck, somebody who is mandatory quota hired happens to be good, doesn't mean that quota hiring is good. That just means that a freaking blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. Let's look at this video here.
Police officer Mohammed Noor's psychiatric evaluation should have immediately raised red flags. Noor is charged with shooting and killing Justine Damon outside her home last summer. Investigative reporter Kirsten Swanson is here with more on what was in the evaluation that raised concerns.
Well, there's court documents that were filed this week, Kevin, where prosecutors argue that Noor's own answers to the questions in his pre-hire screening demonstrate that he was unsuited for the job. Police experts that we showed those findings to agree and say this raises questions about the psych screening process that...
Wow. So they said flat out in the court documents that he shouldn't have been hired. Well, Rick, why was he hired if he should have been? Because you don't have standards when you have quotas.
Need to be addressed.
How many other officers were passed?
Michael Quinn spent years at the Minneapolis Police Department selecting candidates and training new recruits. He says if Mohammed Noor's file came across his desk back then,
I almost can guarantee we would have said no. Not a good candidate.
Quinn reviewed newly filed court documents.
That's really great that you can say that now that you're not in the job, but I'm going to say you're full of crap, because there's plenty of people that come across the desk that shouldn't be hired, and you can't turn them down because they're required to have so many women, so many gays, so many transgenders, so many blacks, so many man-hating females. That there's just different areas that police departments, that government, which is why government is so incompetent. It hires incompetent people. It doesn't hire people on ability or standards. It doesn't, make a situation where cream rises to the top. It makes it so the lowest standard possible that we can keep lowering in order to fill our PC experimental culture crap that we need to show that we're PC correct, and let's just hire anybody for any reason except good qualified people, because they tend to be in the areas that we're not trying to hire.
Documents where Hennepin County prosecutors lay out portions of Noor's pre-employment psych evaluation and his actions during field training. Prosecutors argue that Noor himself reported disliking people and being around them.
Look, I could get if this guy is a cop his whole life and he says, I don't like people and I don't like being around them. I get that. That's probably 90% of the cops that freaking retire. But when you're coming in to be a cop and you're saying that could be a problem. We call that a clue.
That he self-reported disinterest in interacting with other people and that the test results showed Noor is more likely to become impatient with others over minor infractions and is more likely to exhibit difficulties confronting subjects.
So he doesn't like being around people. He can't handle confrontation, and he has more difficulties controlling suspects. I know. Let's make him a cop. But why, Rick? Because he fits our quota. He's a Muslim. Oh, okay, I get it. That's right.
We did everything we could to get those candidates through and look past small things. These are not small things in his case. These are things that when you look at what was written up in the psychological, these are things that are disqualifiers.
But prosecutors explain the psychiatrist concluded he was psychiatrically fit to work as a police officer. The reason, according to the psychiatrist, was because there was no evidence of major mental illness.
Notice that word, major. I can't believe a psychiatrist put this, and I can't believe a police department put this guy on here, and now a woman is dead because of all this incompetence in government. He doesn't have major mental illness. Well, does that mean he has minor mental illness? Are you freaking kidding me?
Chemical dependence or personality disorder.
You look at that and you think that sounds like a sort of bare minimum standard.
James Densley teaches criminal justice at Metropolitan State University.
I don't think that jives very well with kind of community's expectations of who you want to be policing the streets.
Quinn says the buck should have stopped there.
He never should have made it through the field training program.
How does a candidate with these sorts of...
So because he said he shouldn't have made it through FTO, the field training program, that means that he had really bad marks and people were identified that this guy's no good, and he passed. Well, Rick, how did he pass if his FTOs and his training officer says he was no good? Because he was a quota hire. You people don't understand how a quota hire system, you just think I make up this word. Anybody that's in the field knows exactly what it is, and they know the problems it creates long term.
marks continue on to field training?
That's a great question.
It's a question.
That's not a great question. The question was, how does he get in there? The question is not a great question. It's a very simple question. We have quota hires. We have PC. We have liberal politicians that we want our, diversity is our strength, even though it gets people killed. We have all these things pushed by the liberal left agenda that is complete failure. And then you ask, how does this happen? Well, that's because you're an idiot.
That we took to the city of Minneapolis and Minneapolis police, along with a lot of other questions in this case. We wanted to know if anyone had concerns about Noor's psych evaluation or his field training. A spokesperson told us because of this pending criminal case against former officer Noor that they wouldn't comment at this.
Oh, there's a criminal case. Isn't it funny? Every time the government gets involved in a criminal case for their incompetence, they can't talk about it because of the criminal case. Man. That's just shocking. Who could have predicted that? Where's Ray Charles and who's the other guy? Helen Keller, and there's another dude. I can't think of his name. Anyway, all right, we'll end that there.